Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the October 19th, 2020 Clovis City Council meeting. Given the current shelter-in-place order covering the state of California and the social distancing guidelines issued by federal, state, and local authorities, the city is implementing changes to participate in council meetings. The council chambers will be open to the public, but we will be implementing social distancing policies and will limit the number of people who may be in council chambers. The meeting will be webcast and accessed at the link shown on the screen. Members of the public are encouraged to participate in the meetings by accessing the webcast at the link shown, providing written comments at the same website, participating by phone, or coming to the City Council meeting in person. We are practicing social distancing and can only accommodate a maximum of 16 people at one time. I will call the meeting to order and ask Councilmember Flores to lead us in flag salute.
Please join me in saluting our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jose. If the clerk will call roll, please.
Councilmember Ashbeck?
Here.
Councilmember Flores?
Here.
Councilmember Moana-Tua, who is not absent. Sorry, I didn't update it from last week. Councilmember Whalen?
Here.
Mayor Bessinger?
Here. This is the time of the meeting where we have public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on any matter within the City Council's jurisdiction that is not listed on the agenda. In order for everyone to be heard, please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less, or 10 minutes per topic. Anyone wishing to be placed on the agenda for a specific topic should contact the City Manager's office and submit correspondence at least 10 days before the desired date of appearance. Is there anyone present in chambers who would like to address the council? You may come up, ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor and council members and city staff. My name is Jean Johnson, and I'm a resident of the Ashcroft and Locan. And my concern tonight is that new project that you're talking about, which is the Loma Vista Community Project. I was able to attend the meeting on September the 29th, and I was not impressed by the project. It's a new stack and pack project where people are going to be living like sardines, like your other projects that you, like some of your projects that you have now.
Ms. Johnson, you're talking about an item which is on the agenda. This is public comments.
Okay, well, that's fine. Well, then I'll change it. I'm going to switch it. I thought it was the Planning Commission on Thursday, and that's why I'm here today. So that way the public knows that the Planning Commission's taking this forward on Thursday. Is that true or false?
Mayor, if I could add, I think Mrs. Johnson is speaking about the Loma Vista Park green space by Clovis East.
Okay, so this is not the item that's on the agenda. I continue, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're sorry. Oh, so am I. You know, hey, what's we're here for? Anyway, it's located off Shaw, out in that area by Clovis East. I was here once before regarding a project on Ashland and Locan. And that's another stack and pack where you have all these homes packed in together. You get more homes by the acreage and you get more money. And I can understand your situation as a city where you get more tax dollars for as many homes that you can cram in one space. That new project is ridiculous. I'd rather have it where you put retail out there rather than these homes, because the park makes no sense and it's just too tight. Too tight. I would suggest that you have more meetings instead of taking it to the Planning Commission on Thursday. The residents out there need to know what's going on. We're not a throwaway part of the city, which is Clovis East. But like I was referencing, I can remember one council member stating when that project was going up on Ashland and Locan that there was not going to be a football field out there. I think it's time that you think about the east side of Clovis, put out there a decent stadium. You have at Clovis North. You have one at Buchanan. You have Clovis East. If you want to expand, think about our children out there. Don't just say you want to put 10,000 new homes out there, 40,000 new residents, and you want all of us to take our kids where? I don't see any new schools being projected to be built out there. I heard about a fire department being out there. I don't know the police chief, his philosophy about a substation, because how are you going to protect those residents out there? It takes longer response time for the police department or the fire department. I may be putting my foot in my mouth because I'm not too sure, but the fire department is going to take a longer response time. The police department will take a longer response time. Have respect for your city and your residents that are here. Keep your motto. This is a great city. You're trashing it with all of your stack and pack projects. That should be rejected. So I would ask that the residents come out Thursday, Planning Commission, let them know. You can either approve or disapprove, but I'm one that doesn't want the project. It's too big, it's ugly. There was nothing on there that made me happy at all. So I leave it at that. Have a great evening, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Jonathan. Does anyone else in chambers wish to address the council on any item not on the agenda? Seeing none, do we have anybody online?
There are none.
Did we get any correspondence, Mr. Clark?
Mayor, you have one letter in front of you with my name at the top. It's dated October 19th. It's a letter from a Dale and Elizabeth Payhill. They live at 3060 Loyola, and it's a single email with 5 attachments. It's not on the agenda tonight. It's going to be considered by City Council at a later date, and we have the City Attorney's Office and staff working to respond to it. We just received this today.
Great, thank you. If there's no further comments, I will close public comment. In regards to ordinances and resolutions, with respect to the approval of resolutions and ordinances, the reading of the title shall be deemed a motion to waive a reading of the complete resolution or ordinance, and unless there is a request by a council member that the resolution or ordinance be read in full, further reading of the resolution or ordinance shall be deemed waived by the unanimous consent of the council. Now we come to the consent calendar. Items considered routine in nature are to be placed on the consent calendar. They will all be considered and voted upon in one vote as one item, unless a council member requests individual consideration. A council member's vote in favor of the consent calendar is considered and recorded as a separate affirmative vote in favor of each action listed. Motions in favor of adoption of the consent calendar are deemed to include a motion to waive the reading of any ordinance or resolution on the consent calendar. For adoption of ordinances, only those that have received a unanimous vote upon introduction are considered consent items. Does any member of the council wish to have an item on the consent calendar pulled? Seeing none, does any member of the public present in chambers wish to have an item on the consent calendar pulled? Seeing none, do we have anybody online?
No.
And Mr. Clerk, we received no correspondence regarding any item on the consent calendar?
Correct, nothing.
Okay, I will come back to the council for action.
I'll move for approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Public hearings, item number 7, consider items associated with the request to approve a rezone of approximately 30 acres of property located near the northeast corner of Clovis and Dakota Avenues to be consistent with the underlying general plan designation of MUV, Mixed Use Village. Clovis Dakota LLC, property owner Don Picken and Associates applicant, and Nick Crawford is our representative. Item A is consider approval of a resolution, a request to adopt an environmental finding of a mitigated negative declaration for rezone 2020-03. B, consider introduction of an ordinance 2020-003, a request to rezone approximately 30 acres from the C2 Community Commercial, M1 Light Industrial, M2 Heavy Industrial, and R2 Multifamily Medium-High Density Residential Zone to the CM Commercial and Light Manufacturing District. Ricky Caperton is our presenter. Ricky.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. So rezone 2020-003 is located at the northeast area of Clovis and Dakota Avenues, as you can see here. It's approximately 30 acres. Some of you may recall it as being a former winery site, and right now it's currently vacant and undeveloped. It's just east of the Clovis Recreation Center, and it's also bounded on the east by the ponding basin that you see here. So just a little background on the site. Back in the early 1900s, a winery site was first constructed there. Sometime in the 60s or 70s, the site was abandoned and lay fallow since then. 2014, there was a portion of the site, about 17 or so acres, approved for 144 multifamily units, which subsequently did not move forward. Back in 2015 and 16 is when the winery buildings were condemned and taken down. And then in 2018, the applicant, who's here this evening, initiated purchase of the site. And then in 2019, and most recently, earlier this year, purchased the entire site that's the subject of tonight. So the existing zoning you can see out here right now has quite a bit of mix here. There's a little bit of community commercial, light industrial, heavy industrial, and then the R2 there where the multifamily units were approved for previously. And the proposed zoning would go all to CM. So it would go from those mix of those 4 zone districts to just one, the commercial light manufacturing. Based on our code, the CM district is intended for retail and wholesale sales, light manufacturing, warehousing, distributing, and storage operation type uses. So these are just some conceptual elevations provided by the applicant. As you can see here, most of the buildings would be approximately 20 to 25 foot in height, would include a mix of facade materials as well as complementary colors. And then here's another design for some of the buildings that they have that they'd like to put out there. So although not required per city policy for rezones, neighborhood meetings were voluntarily held by the applicant for input. The first one, pre-COVID, back in fall of 2019, there was an in-person meeting held. And then just as recent as August, although it wasn't an in-person meeting, the applicant did send out notices to the neighbors to get input via mail. So we received 4 comment letters, one of which just came in this past Friday, which you have in front of you this evening for reference. Concerns were primarily with traffic circulation. One particular person who commented didn't want medical office uses. They didn't particularly oppose the project as a whole, they just didn't want medical office uses there. And then noise concerns. So to address the first issue, traffic circulation, this is a conceptual site plan that the applicant would like if successful and able to move forward. As you can see here, there'd really be 2 main access points, one off of Dakota and then another off of Clovis Avenue. And the circulation was designed to kind of funnel people in and out through that way. That way it would minimize potential impacts to the adjacent residential neighborhoods. And then some of the buildings fronting Dakota would each have their own private drive. So there would be some traffic there, but the bulk of it would probably circulate, as you see there, off of Sabre and around the interior. In terms of the concern with the medical office uses, the end users for a project like this are unknown at the time. At this stage, it's just the rezone. But the CM zone district does allow for a variety of medical service uses. Most of them most medical service related uses would require a conditional use permit, meaning at that time it would go before at least the planning commission for consideration in which the neighbors would be noticed accordingly. Medical service uses requiring a CUP would include planning commission review, as I just mentioned. And related to this, the city historically has not restricted independent uses allowed under a particular zone district, so it's not something we've typically done based on concerns. In terms of noise, the project conceptually would meet the minimum Setbacks would be 15 feet that are adjacent to residential. They would also include a masonry wall in between the project and the residential to the north and as well as to the east. They would also be required, just like any other business, to comply with the city noise regulations. So even though we don't necessarily know the end users at this point, whatever end user is there, they would have to comply with our typical noise standards so they don't become a nuisance. Future noise-intensive uses could be required to provide additional acoustical studies to identify appropriate mitigation measures. We have general plan policies and also language in our code that would give us the authority to, require noise studies if potentially a noise-intensive use is proposed at a later date. So in conclusion, the request allows for the zoning of the site to be brought into consistency with the general plan land use designation. The rezone allows for use that is intended within this area as identified in the 2014 general plan. And the conceptual site plan and elevations right now do show that the design and layout would meet and in some cases exceed our minimum development standards. And the project itself does meet many of the general plan goals and policies supporting economic development. So with that, the Planning Commission and staff do recommend that the City Council approve a request to adopt an environmental finding for a mitigated negative declaration, as well as consider introduction for a request to rezone the property to the CM zone district. So that concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available for any questions, and I know the applicant is here as well.
Thank you, Ricky. Any questions for staff? Lynn?
Ricky, I know in the staff report it talked about the underlying general plan designation, these 4 elements, and any one of them could be 100% of the project. It was never intended to necessarily develop as a mixed use, if you will, right?
That's correct. So the areas in focus area 4 in the general plan, and the primary use called out in that focus area is actually for commercial, more in line with what's being proposed here. The secondary use could be residential, but either one of them could be 100%.
So staff doesn't have any concerns about the shift away from housing, for example. I mean, this project has been many things over the years: apartments, soccer fields,
right,
multifamily, other, et cetera. So from a staff perspective, you're fine that it's all in at commercial, light industrial kind of use?
Yes,
yeah.
We didn't see any concern with this, and what's being proposed actually brings it into consistency with our general plan, and it's more in line with that primary uses anticipated in that focus area dating back to 2014 in our general plan.
I guess just a comment, I think the neighbors' concerns, I do feel like this neighborhood, Joe has, I think you lived here, your first house was over there. I think that I worry a little bit about, they have the Shields Avenue kind of industrial part down in there, and then they're going to have this to the north, and so I do think it does require some attention to how it's going to impact their neighborhood, so they don't feel like they're sort of stuck in the middle of industrial on all sides, which is probably not what they signed up for. So I guess I'll just wait for the applicant to talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
And this property wasn't any in our RENA housing overlay. This wasn't in any of those mixes anywhere.
It was not.
And staff done any kind of calculation on how many jobs that you imagine that this project could generate?
Yeah, we anticipate that it could bring anywhere between 700 and 900 jobs at full build out.
Sorry, one more question. From a design perspective, there really isn't much about this look that is a welcome to Clovis look that looks like our community in any way. Any discussion with the applicant on the appearance of the building, or are they open to any conversation about having it look a little bit more like We're Glad You're in Clovis?
Yeah, I think they would. I mean, at this stage, it's so early, and these are just certainly conceptual elevations, and it's something that we would work with the applicant on if successful during the site plan review phase to possibly dress up the buildings a little bit more. But that's when we would take kind of that deeper dive look at that and provide some feedback.
But you do think the applicant might be open to that?
Based on my experiences working with them, yes. I'll let him speak to it if he'd like to say anything, but working with this particular applicant, they've been receptive to changes on other projects. So
maybe when they comment, they could comment on that. Thanks, Mayor.
Jose?
I think Lynn kind of spoke to what my concerns would be, because I once was a resident of that neighborhood that will now be sandwiched between 2 industrial areas. One's light industrial, but the other one is heavy industrial. And we've had, and we still have, residents from that area come here and continuously complain about what's happening to the south. So the intensity of the industry there is not going to be to the level of the south. It'll be a lot less. The standards regarding noise and what can actually go there will be a lot less than what goes on to the south.
I mean, there's different zoning, so it's hard to say without knowing the end users, but I think, by and large, you know, from when the property industrial developed, kind of in the southern area a while back versus now, I mean, the standards would be a little more, stringent, so
With the zone designation, with the commercial and light manufacturing.
Yeah, I think it would be probably generally less intense, but again, without knowing the end users, the CM district allows for, you know, a variety of uses, so it's hard to say without knowing the end users.
Because we're also going to get the Tarpey people, because to the north of that, we'll have Tarpey. So it's going to be residential all the way around them.
Yeah, understood.
And then eventually, not now, because as soon as they build, to the north of this development will be Tarpey, to the east will be Clovis, and to the south will be Clovis. It'll be a little peninsula of this commercial and light manufacturing, surrounded by county and Clovis.
Yeah, and based on the conceptual site layout and where the buildings are, even though there's a 15-foot minimum setback requirement or it's adjacent to residential, the buildings would actually be much further. So the applicant has tried, at least in the conceptual phase, to move the buildings as far away as possible from that adjacent residential. And really where the residential abuts this property, there's 10 properties to the north, and I believe it was 13 on the east. And then the rest of the eastern is the Ponding Basin, and certainly there's neighborhoods to the south across Dakota, but the ones that are immediately close to it, there's about 25 homes. And where those buildings are conceptually shown, it would exceed that minimum of 15-foot setback.
Thank you. Bob.
Thank you, Mayor. Ricky, I appreciate the applicant putting the elevations in. I share some of the same concerns that Lynn has. I do think that these elevations are an improvement over what I generally see in a picket building. Fair or unfair, there's been a criticism of some of the picket buildings in the city of Clovis as not being up to par when it comes to you know, what the type of look that we have. And that's created some conflict in some of our business parks, specifically the Dry Creek Business Park. Whatever the elevations are that are going to be moving forward, as they have been presented this evening, there's nothing that ties them to this particular elevation, at least in this vote today. Is that right? The elevations were just given to us as a courtesy, and it's going to be the site plan review process that decides what the elevations are going to look like?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, the ones before you are just a concept, so.
Okay. Is there anything that we can do tonight to encourage our planning and development folks to make sure that as they present to you a site plan, that we do have elevations that are going to be a little significantly upgraded from the traditional picket building?
Yeah, we can take note on that and work with the applicant, and I'm sure the applicant would be willing to agree to working with us to enhance those.
Okay, all right. And if they have an objection to the high standards that we have in the city of Clovis, they can always appeal to us. Is that right?
That's great.
Okay. And then I know that the focus area is a little bit wider than this particular project area. And if I recall correctly, at the corner, I guess it would be the northeast corner of Clovis and Dakota, that's not going to be included, at least that immediate corner there. And I thought that there was a plan for maybe a hotel to go in there at some point in the future. Is there anything in the works at that particular location?
Not that I'm aware of. There's no currently in process applications on that particular corner, and there's nothing that's currently approved there. So
Okay.
There's been discussions and concepts, you know, floating around, but
Okay.
Nothing in progress right now.
All right. And all right, I will save the rest of my comments for comments. Thank you.
Vaughn.
Thank you, Ricky, for the report. Can you discuss again the ability or the decision to let go of the 17 acres of the 144 multifamily? Because is it sort of what Lynn said, where it can be all or any of those four initially? That's why? Because there was a 17 acres, and I just feel it was a majority of the initial zone.
Yeah, so the focus area 4 allows for up to 60% of the focus area to be residential. It doesn't require it to be, it doesn't have to be, it just gave the option for that as a secondary use. So in terms of letting go, as it stands right now, the land use designation is mixed use village, and based on consistent zone districts with that designation, it actually permits residential 15 units or greater, and it doesn't allow for M2, which is heavy industrial. So as it stands right now, some of the existing zoning in staff's analysis is inconsistent. So this would bring it into consistency. So even though it's 17 acres of R2, it's not actually consistent with the land use designation as it stands.
Okay. So losing those numbers, since it was never in the RENA overlay anyway, no major consequence or no consequence at all to that number, that figure that we've been tracking?
Yeah, not based on our analysis.
Okay. Any concerns with regards to the parking for the rec and the future development of that industrial? Because potentially when that rec area is full, people are parking all over the place. Is there something in which the staff will work with the two, us and them, so that way there's shared parking, or how that will work, or are they going to be totally opposed to the community parking should there be events at the rec center?
That's something we can work with the applicant during the site plan review phase if the rezone is successful. I don't know that we've actually talked about that yet, but it's something we would be mindful of working with them. We certainly want to make sure there's sufficient parking for our own rec center.
Yeah, because I think that if once it develops out, I think we need to put that in there so that way our residents, when they come in, instead of parking all over the dirt areas at the rec area, we can park along the streets and make sure there's crosswalks that go to our rec area.
All right.
I think that's important.
Understood.
Okay. This area is sort of an entry point, and I think it is a good opportunity for us to require some entry amenity, some structure, some monument, something in which they fix the median. I don't know, but it needs to transition where someone drives there and go, Clovis, instead of going, looks like Clovis. I don't feel anything until I get to Shaw Avenue. So they need to feel Clovis there. And I think that we need to do this now, because if we don't, we'll never do it. And so kind of along with Councilmember Whelan with that southwest or the northeast corner or the southwest of this property, we have to require something now in which they all pitch in to do something in the corner, if not something in the median. They have to fix that median, I think. I think they need to just fix our side and make it look nice. The trail is already there, so it looks good. So I want us to require, discuss, make something where it's something that shows Clovis. And I trust the planning department to create or design something in which you go, okay, because we did a pretty good job over Shaw going, with Hedrick Chevrolet, right? We fixed the middle, we put those palm trees in, and you can tell, okay, it looks nice. If you go the other way, it just kind of looks like regular streets, but if you come on the underpass towards Clovis, you see that it looks better.
Okay.
And so I would ask that we stress that, and hopefully my fellow council members will support something like that. And lastly is, there has to be we can't forget trails for this part of the community. And so there has to be something in which the bottom southern community gets to this property and goes along and gets to the trails. And so there has to be some feature, whether it's the southern section having a much wider walking area in the southern section in which they can get to the trail and then go the trail north. So there has to be connectivity to this community down the east side and the southern side to our trails. And so we can't let that go. So whether it's, and once again, I trust our planning department to create something in which, you know, people to the south will go, okay, there it is. There's a trail. It's a different pavement. It's a brick monument that tells me that here goes the trail. And so we've done that well all the way up along Clovis Avenue, where we designed it, where we knew it was the trail. So I want us to continue that here. I think there's an opportunity here for us to really make it happen along Clovis Avenue.
Okay.
Those are my comments.
Yeah, we'll work with the applicant on that.
I have a couple of questions. I share my colleagues' concerns about the noise and the aesthetics. Just south of this is another industrial park. I think it's Duke and Dayton. Mm-hmm. And I remember working for the police department, and we had residential up next to an industrial use. And I remember specifically being called out to an older man's house, and he was complaining about the concrete company behind him. And I thought he was being a little close-minded until I heard the noise. And it was really pretty shocking. This is light industrial or light manufacturing. What businesses could go there?
Can be
examples of, and I realize we don't know who the tenants are yet.
Yeah.
But
It can be a variety of, for example, daycares. There can be retail. There can be medical type uses. I believe there's some breweries or establishments like that. So it's really a wide range. Would auto repair be a use that would be permitted? There is auto repair that would be allowed in there, I believe, with the CUP. Okay. And what other? No. And the other concern I have is also the aesthetics. And I've had to recuse myself from the Dry Creek Industrial Park issue. But we have a standard, and we need to make sure that those standards are upheld. And we can't have a repeat of that situation. Okay. I'm concerned about the noise for the neighbors. If some uses go in there that are noisier than others, like auto repair and things like that, but we can discuss that when we come back for comments. Any other questions? Lynn?
Just, I wanted to, along your comment on the trails, I think about this part of town, and this probably is the last parcel of any substantial size down there. Yeah? Yeah. So this is sort of our last chance to get something in that southeast part of town that's a trail, that's a park, that's a tree, that's a something. Because if this becomes, and I guess I can't remember much, but I can't remember the nexus between a commercial development and contributions to park fees, et cetera. You could refresh my memory on that. But this is our last chance for that neighborhood to feel like they're going to connect into Clovis and not, as Joe described, live amongst kind of pop-up industrial buildings. And I don't want to live there, and I don't think they do either. So I do think we have a special obligation maybe in this part of town to try to build them in so they can feel connected regardless of whether it's 100% commercial use. Because I don't think that's what we want for the city, and I don't think that's what we want when we drive in down Clovis Avenue. So I just wanted to highlight that. That's because I thought for the neighbors there, this is the last chance for them to get any sort of development amenity, and without a developer building single-family homes, I don't know what their park, can you remind me how that works? Yeah, well, just on the site alone, I mean, if you've been out there along Dakota right now on that stretch of the frontage, there's no sidewalk. So, one thing that we had already talked to the applicant about is making sure that there's adequate pedestrian circulation there. So I think we're already on that train of thought in terms of the connectivity. I mean, they'd have to do sidewalks anyways, but we can work with them in terms of what the ultimate sidewalk will look like and make sure that we do provide that connectivity to the trail between that adjacent residential, so. And what kind of notice went out to that neighborhood that, where's that number in here?
So for rezones, it's 600 feet, so it went out a 600-foot radius from the parcel boundary.
So it went out basically to
I'm sorry.
three houses in. I mean, I don't know. 600 feet's not very much, so four houses into the development maybe.
Yeah, probably roughly that, if you take the 300 feet, or 600 feet rather.
Anyway, I just think I just wanted to,
Sure.
this is a last chance idea for this neighborhood, and I feel like they have the gun range on the south and the industrial on the north and the concrete factory, and so I think just it would be worthy to think about what we might be able to do to help them.
Any member of the public present in chambers wish to address the council on this item? Come up, sir. Ma'am.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Lydia Posada, and I live on 4015 North Judy, and which is right on the side of, well, actually, my house, side of my house faces the water ponding basin right there. And so when they're going to build that commercial industrial building or stuff, it cuts off right there where the water basin's at. See where that little lines are like that? In that little top left-hand corner? My house is right there, okay? So what's gonna happen with my house? Because there's not gonna be no new fencing there. There's not gonna be, and I have already a little entrance walkway in between the watery basin, and my private fence, my side of my house. And I have kinds of homeless people, I have a bunch of traffic there, I have people defecating there, I have people smoking there, drinking there, sleeping there. When they start building that, what's gonna happen to my home?
So Ricky, can you show me where her house is? Just roughly.
Sorry, I didn't catch where was it at up here?
It would be right on the very top left-hand corner.
You're on Judy, is that right?
Yes,
So Judy and Sussex, where they meet, that'd be where you are?
yes.
Show me where.
Looks like it's up here somewhere.
All the way to the right by Clovis Avenue. My house is right behind that trail walk,
Oh, okay.
right there.
So that particular spot is actually a little bit outside of the project area.
I know.
Yeah, so there wouldn't necessarily be anything as part of this project, in terms of construction,
I know.
that would be affected there, so.
That's what I'm saying. So if you build something there, what's gonna happen to my home? Because everybody else is gonna probably get fencing around there except for me. And so I already have that problem. Like I said, there's already a little trail walk that people go into to liquor stores and there, and I got traffic. Like I said, I got people defecating there. I got people smoking, drinking, sleeping there. And get worried about that, you know. I have people, I even taken pictures of them taking a shower right there at the water basin right there, because they have a shower, I guess, for emergency if they get something in their eyes or something. And I have people climbing over that fence and taking showers there. And I have pictures for that.
It's a different problem.
So that worries me.
There would be a wall or some kind of barrier right here where this last building is, so the wall or barrier rather would go this way and kind of follow.
But does that stop anybody from coming on my side? No.
And you're up here?
I'm right at that end of that water. My house is lined up. I can see the water basin right here. Just like that, you know, where I park at.
Yeah.
And I lived there 33 years.
So what's required? Is it a block light fence between the two residential, because that's county, and then we're gonna be city on our side, so.
Yes.
Right, there would be a block wall running along this northern
So-
property line, and then,
So it's a concrete wall will be required
That's
once
correct.
it's built.
it's correct.
So that's what's gonna separate you from the development, a concrete wall. a block wall. So the people from this side of the development can't get into your side.
No, but there's still gonna be traffic, so all they have to do is just come around that little block, around that concrete block, and you're right back to my house.
But-
There's nothing to stop them from going in and out of there. Because he puts a block wall there, what happens to the watering basin? It stays the same. All there is chain link fence there. They cut that chain link fence all the time. You know, all the city does is go over there and rewire it back up. You know, if there was some way they could just block that so people don't go in and out, you know, into the liquor stores and stuff. I mean, it's great for everybody else, but what about me? That's what I'm saying.
I have a question for you, if you don't mind. I'm over here. So you keep talking about the ponding basin and how you can look directly at the ponding basin.
Because my house, say this is my house right here, and my fence runs right here, and the ponding basin is right here.
So you would you look across the field and then you can see the ponding basin?
Yeah, from where I park my car, you can see the ponding basin.
Okay, and that, I guess what I'm getting confused about is that Judy is right up against the Fresno Clovis Trail.
Yes.
And then the ponding basin is over by Dakota.
No, the ponding basin is right next to I got pictures.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I have this on Google Maps. Can I give this to you so you can take a look at it?
I think she's maybe referring to the well site, because there's a city well site right here.
Yeah, there you go, the well site.
It's the well site.
The well site,
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
That's what I was.
All right. So you're saying at the well site, there's a shower that's there for emergency purposes, and that people will hang out there, they'll take a shower there, they're defecating there, they're smoking, they're not good citizens.
No.
And so you're concerned that what impact is this, action tonight going to have on where you live? Is it gonna
Yes.
stop all of this, awfulness that's taking place around your area, or is it gonna make it worse? Is that kind of?
I believe it'll make it worse because there's nothing to block on my side, you know, from people, just going around that wall block and coming into the neighborhood there, you know? And like I said, and I already have a lot of problems with the homeless there.
Mm-hmm.
And with them having the buildings there, you know that people are gonna try to break into them.
And when you call law enforcement, you live in Tarpey Village, is that
Yes,
right? So it's
yes.
the Fresno Sheriff's Department who
Yes.
responds to you as opposed to Clovis Police
Yes.
Department?
And that
Okay.
already takes a time or so to get there.
Sure. I understand.
And then also, you know, with the trail walk, I use that trail walk. And so I'm constantly picking up trash
Thank you.
right behind my house, and the house is right there. And make a habit to carry a bag with me especially
Good.
like on Saturday or Sunday
Right.
to pick up trash. And especially right there where the rec place is at,
Mm-hmm.
that's always full of trash. Parking, they even park, when they have special events there, they even park along my fence, into almost into the trail walk. You know, they get off on the dirt and they even park in there.
All right, thank you. I had no other questions. Thanks, ma'am.
Could you bring up the satellite view of this, please? Right, yeah, bring up the Google Maps view, a satellite view of this. Okay.
Ricky, do we own that last, right below the jagged edge of the top left right corner? Is that the city?
That's right where the city and county interface, so depending on what part of the fence she's looking at, it may be in the county.
What about above that dotted line, right? The project is only the dotted line, the dotted.
This part might.
Yeah, that part, that
might actually
red part.
be part of it. That might be part of the, in the city limits, because I know we have the well site there, and we have access to the well site, so, but it's right where the city and county, so I'd have to look at the parcel map to see if it's actually county or city. but I believe that part's in city limits.
Okay, so in other words, the area she's talking about is our land then?
Well, it depends where
Most
she's
likely.
actually talking about, because, if it's actually right along this roadway right here, that might actually be in the county. And there is a chain link fence there, so, if it's in county jurisdiction, we can, try to explore, reach out to the county maybe and pass along the concerns in terms of.
My understanding, when I went to your meeting, that was Clovis's, because they're the ones that run that water well. And the city of Clovis, trucks are there to service that area, to check on the water there,
So are we having an aspect fence issue here, where we have two jurisdictions and the fence are not lining up and
I thought I heard my name. What? On the street, we have another aspect fence problem?
so, I mean, you coined the problem, so we gotta give you credit now.
Thank you so much.
So is that what's, because that's a problem that can be addressed now, it
Yeah.
sounds like.
Andy has some background, so I think he's gonna add on to what I had.
Can only add on 6 feet apart, apparently.
Okay, so I'm going to tackle a couple of issues here. That area on the northwest corner that is the cutout, it was property that the city owns. It's being set aside for the city well. About half of it is the current well, and Public Utilities plans to expand that well to do some additional treatment there, which would involve some improvements. So I could see some potential for improving that fence and securing it better going forward. And that'd be something that Public Utilities would be taking on as they move forward with a potential treatment expansion in that area. There is a path that runs along her property that connects the neighborhood to the trail system there that's used. That is in the county's jurisdiction, and we don't have anything that we can do in regards to that other than work with the county going forward on that connection point. So, but then it gets complicated because then it crosses right over into city property on the trail alignment there. So depending on where the crime or ill behavior is occurring, that could be city jurisdiction or the county's jurisdiction for those issues.
So the trail is in the city of Clovis,
Correct.
but and when you say path that connects
Yeah,
the trail to that neighborhood where,
Yeah.
what was your last name?
Posada, Posada.
Mrs. Posada lives, that's a county stretch of path. I assume it's not cleaned up path, it's just a path.
Yeah, it's just a dirt pathway that may have been paved at one point, but a dirt pathway that connects the neighborhood to have easy access to the trail. And it appears to be there longer, have been there longer than the trail probably has been a trail.
Okay.
Well, I've been there 33 years and it's been that way.
Yeah.
I try to keep it up,
Yeah.
keep it clean there.
So,
and then-
Ms. Posada, do you have people walking on that dirt path between your
Every day.
house? Okay. And are those the people?
24/7.
And are those the people that are causing problems, or are that just neighbors who are flying at
No,
this?
not, some of the neighbors are pretty good, but I just have a lot of, homeless and people just, like I said, going through and then they park right there at the corner, and then that's where they sit down and they drink right there and they smoke right there. And I even have people sleeping there.
Okay. Thank you.
So, and then regarding the parking issues that she described, the city has worked out a reciprocal parking agreement with the developer for the area, so it should accommodate a lot of the parking for the rec center and for the business park as needed for overflow. So just wanted to bring that up as well. And hopefully the increased activity in the area of businesses taking ownership will reduce people doing or being bad citizens as described. So if I have any other questions about the history and how we got here, I'd be happy to answer.
Looking at the satellite view, we have a well site. On the east side of that well site, is that going to be where a concrete block wall will be?
That's correct.
Okay, all right. Ma'am, I hijacked your time.
I just have one more thing to say. During the time that they were tearing down the old winery, and they had actually closed that little walk pathway. They put chain link fence, nobody will come through there during that time of the construction. That was the best time for me, because I didn't have people walking in and out all the time. You know, it was really nice. So if anything, I mean, maybe block that pathway, maybe build a chain, a brick wall to my house so nobody will, you know, I already have them jumping over the fence, and it's just a mess.
That's a question.
Certainly.
Sort of the blue, there's Bob has a Google Earth photo, and there's a tarp, it looks like a blue. Is that on your property, or that's someone's homeless?
Oh, no, actually, we already took that down. It's a little shed.
But that's yours?
Yes.
Oh, I was gonna say, oh my gosh, or like they built a permanent facility.
The tarp's already gone.
Okay, so that's not the homeless are really transient?
No.
Coming and going?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
But I do have them camping right behind my fence, sitting up right there, and then, you know, they have their dogs there, and then my dogs are there, and it's, oh my goodness, chaos at night.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question for staff. When we expand that well site, would that be a time when we would put our own block light fence there and maybe help Ms. Posada out?
We can certainly explore that. I'm not familiar with the details of what that would look like, but Luke might.
Okay. Any, Mr. Serpa?
So, yes, we could put a block wall around that well site as we improve it. That would put the block wall around our well site, but it appears that there's still some county property in between that we really don't have control and possession over. But we could block wall ours and make it a little more secure.
Thank you. Any other member of the public present in chambers wish to address the council on this item?
Associates. Oh, thank you. I'd like to be here to answer any questions, and appreciate your feedback tonight on the project.
Mr. Whalen.
Thank you. Mike, thanks for being here. And one of the questions that I was, directing towards staff, I guess I'd also direct towards you. Those elevations that you've presented in the presentation that we've seen, to me, they look better than the traditional picket building. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to respond in public as to the quality of the elevations or the structures that you're going to have there as far as aesthetics are concerned. I understand that generally what you build is a building where jobs are created, uses are made that can be, sometimes a little bit loud, but also we want jobs in the city of Clovis. So it costs you a little bit extra to make those buildings look better than just really kind of the tin building that they are. And I'm not trying to be disparaging to your product. I just want you to understand that up here, we have an expectation of picket that maybe has not yet been fulfilled in some of the other buildings that you have created, at least from an aesthetic perspective. And I didn't know whether you guys are even willing to take on a project like this, knowing that our standards are going to be high here for the reasons that you've heard from your, the council members up here. So are you willing to raise your standards, at least from my view, raise your standards in order to meet with what our planning and development has in store for you when it comes to a site plan?
So yes, I'm open to discussion about what the look of the building will be. Okay. I would like to add that our product is built in a fashion that it works for small business owners, and that's something that I think you need to keep in mind.
No, and I appreciate that very much. And so, but I do think that we have some standards that you may not be willing to adhere to. And if it comes to it where you disagree as you move through this process with what planning and development is suggesting, then you're obviously free to come to the council and make your complaints known to us.
Sure.
But I think that what planning and development is getting, at least from the conversation up here, is that we do have high standards. And so it's unlikely that we're going to want to lower them, you know, in order to just have some buildings there. So I just wanted to manage expectations to the degree that I could on the side of Pickett going into this project. And if you guys pull out of it, you pull out of it, but this is a key piece of property for us. It has been difficult for us to find uses there, and we're sensitive to that, but at the same time, just because it's been difficult doesn't mean that we're willing to throw in the towel and have built there whatever, you know, we think, or actually an industrial developer thinks makes sense there. You hear where I'm coming from?
Yeah, I hear where you're coming from, and I'd welcome open discussions with you, all of you outside of council chambers, and would like to hear your opinions. And I'm going to be an investor in this project. Besides selling some, we keep some, and I want a successful project. I live in Clovis. I want it to be something we can be proud of.
Great. So do we. Thank you, Matt.
I just wanted to, the second paragraph to Bob's comments are the interface with the neighborhood. So the project itself, it is the first thing people will see as they come north on Clovis Avenue, so it needs to say, hey, you're in Clovis and our standards are high in Clovis, and so welcome and join in with us. But it also needs to have a really strong interface with the neighborhood. And I'm not talking expensive, I'm not talking 3 new parks and a play structure. I'm just talking about sidewalks and landscaping and a monument. So it looks like it's important that their neighborhood's important to us and your project's important to us. So I just wanted to add a second paragraph to expectations about how you interface with that neighborhood there.
Sure. Yeah, and we've envisioned already been working with the neighbor on the corner of Clovis and Dakota with the idea of upgrading the landscaping along the trail. That's going to be, you know, contingent on working with him on that, but that is an idea that's been tossed around. We have tossed around the idea of some sort of a monument at the entrance there near the rec center. But yeah, again, I want this to be a very nice project. I want you to be proud of it, and the whole community to be proud of it.
Thanks, Mike.
And just, I want to jump in also. The expectations are going to be high, and the planning staff is going to be answering to the council on this. If there's not, the expectations aren't met. Any other member of the council have any more comments for Mr. Pickett? Vaughn.
Thank you for being here this evening, Mr. Pickett. On the south side, I kind of mentioned making it where the walk area from the south and from the east neighborhoods have a nice walkway to the trail. And that's something you're not opposed to. You're willing to work with us to create something which is inviting and has, you know, nice landscaping there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and one of my ideas is to work with a landscape architect like Terry Broussard to come up with a concept for the whole park, where we'll have a theme and yes, we would be open to that for sure.
Thanks, sir. Any other member of the public President and Council Chambers wish to address the council on this item? Seeing none, do we have anybody on the web?
None.
Mr. Clerk, did we get any correspondence?
Ricky mentioned it, but you have one letter in front of you with a cover agenda item number 7, so that's the letter that you received.
Thank you. I will close public comment and come back to the council for discussion or for action.
I had a question, Mayor. Are you going to make a motion yet?
Yeah, no, I'll wait till your comments.
Okay. Ricky, I thought I understood on that sentence. The school bus, that's a major school bus stop, is it? On Dakota? To pick up students? Is there one?
I'm not sure if the school bus.
I thought we heard that once when the residents came. So does Andy know? Does someone know? So I want to, with all this coming in, I just want us to be cognizant of children, traffic coming in, and so where that's going to be and how it's all going to be incorporated and be mindful of that, of students walking up to get on the bus.
Yeah, there is a school bus stop, there at the public park on the south side of Dakota, which is toward the eastern portion of the project.
Okay.
So that the kids gather from the south and meet the bus there.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, West Cal Park there.
Okay. Yeah, if, Ricky, go ahead. Yeah, if you can also just take that into consideration as you work with the applicant on how that all works out in the future. Thanks.
Yeah, will do. Thank you.
Bob?
Thanks. I'm going to go ahead and make some motions here that, you know, there's been a lot of conversation that's tangentially related, you know, around what it is we're doing here. The action tonight is rather limited, and so I'll just go ahead and make these motions. At first, that I move that we adopt an environmental finding of a mitigated negative declaration for rezone R 2020-003.
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Then, Mayor, I also move that we introduce the ordinance and associated R 2020-003, a request to rezone approximately 30 acres from the C2 Community Commercial, M1 Light Industrial, M2 Heavy Industrial, and R2 Multifamily Medium High Density Residential Zone Districts to the CM, which is the Commercial and Light Manufacturing Zone District.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Yes?
Can we just have staff pay attention to the little corner property that Mrs. Posada talked about, and maybe we'll reach out to the county and see if there's some way we could?
I'll reach out to the supervisor in charge of that area too.
Okay.
Yeah.
We know him,
We know him.
a little. Anyway, but I mean, it wouldn't seem hard to sort of just incorporate that in the work so that we can at least make some improvement to what you described, which is a really unacceptable circumstance.
Okay, and if she wants to leave her contact information before she leaves, we'll reach back out and follow up with her.
Thank you for coming, Ms. Posada. Item number 8, I'm sorry? Oh. Item number 8, consider items associated with approximately 1.07 acres portion of property located at the northwest corner of Shaw and Cole Avenues. Deborah and Robert Carlson, owners, Patrick Murphy of Clovis 1 LLC, applicant representative. A, consider approval of a resolution, General Plan Amendment 2020-002, a request to amend the Shaw Avenue specific plan to permit drive-through uses for this specific site. B is consider approval of a resolution of a conditional use permit 2020-003, a request to amend the adopted use schedule for the PCC Planned Commercial Center to allow for a drive-in use and allow for approximately 3,300 square foot drive-through restaurant use. Ricky is our presenter. Ricky.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. So General Plan Amendment 2020-02 is a request to amend the Shaw Avenue specific plan to allow for a drive-through use. The specific plan itself was originally adopted back in 1978 with a major amendment in 1994, which prohibited the drive-through establishments. One of the main purposes, or a couple of them, are to prevent lineal and strip commercial between Clovis and Temperance Avenues, as well as designate most of the areas for office or residential type uses, and to also focus retail and commercial in specific centers. So as you can see up here, there are a few drive-through uses already there. There's a Ride and Shine, Bank, Taco Bell, Foster's Freeze, Walgreens, and then as well as a Human Being and a future drive-through use, which if you recall was from earlier this March, which was approved. And then right there on the star, you can see where the proposed drive-through would be in relation to the other ones. CUP 2020-003 is a request for a drive-through use, as well as to amend the PCC use schedule for the Sierra Pavilion Shopping Center at this location. The main structure would be an approximately 3,300 square foot drive-through building you see there highlighted. There would be a couple of outdoor dining areas that would be permitted, as well as some landscaped areas, as you see there noted in the green. In terms of the circulation, you can see that they have a actual dual drive-through configuration here. Based on this configuration, as shown, it would allow up to 23 vehicles to be just within that queuing area, which exceeds our minimum standards for queuing lengths for drive-throughs. These are some conceptual elevations of what the Raising Cane's would look like. As you can see on the roof, they try to mimic or stick with the Sierra Pavilion's design as much as possible. If you're familiar with the existing Pier 1 building, or formerly Pier 1, it kind of has a similar roof design, so they're really trying to make it look new and modern, but also still not look so out of place and still kind of fit within the Sierra Pavilions. So with that, Planning Commission and staff recommend approval of GPA 2020-02, a request to amend the text of the Chauvigny specific plan to permit the drive-through, as well as consider approval of CUP 2020-003 to amend the use schedule for the PCC zone district, as well as to allow the drive-through use. And I know the applicant is here as well, and they have a couple of slides. So I'll invite them to come up if they'd like to go through those.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Patrick Murphy. My address is 1234 East 17th Street in Santa Ana, California. I am here to answer any questions that you might have from an ownership perspective. I have been involved with the Sierra Pavilion Center now for about somewhere between 2.5 and 3 years. And I've been in the retail real estate business for 35 years. And I have to tell you that in all of the cities throughout California and also in other states, this city is the best that I've ever done business in. The staff members from economic development, planning, engineering, building and safety, everyone is extremely cooperative. The communication levels are the highest that I've ever experienced. So I want to thank you folks. I want to thank staff for everything that they've done and worked hard, because we've had this project now, it's going on 2 decades. We're very happy with it, and it's just been great. So I'm going to turn it over to Adam Karachi now, who is with Raising Cane's, and he can give his presentation to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, my name is Adam Karachi. My address is 6800 Bishop Road, Plano, Texas, 75024. Thank you again for your time this evening. Appreciate the opportunity to be here and explain who we are, as I realize that you're probably not familiar with our concept. Raising Cane's is a chicken finger restaurant that was founded in Baton Rouge, Louisiana by Todd Graves in 1996. So not even 25 years ago. Since then, we've expanded to California. We do have restaurants in the Los Angeles area, but we do not have any restaurants in this part of the state. So this would be one of the first restaurants in the Central Valley. What you see here on the screen is actually one of our older restaurant designs. But each restaurant is pretty much customized to fit in with the community, down from community involvement to, as staff mentioned, the architecture and the aesthetics of the building. We do one thing, it is chicken fingers, and really the only variation is how many you get. We don't do shakes, we don't do burgers, we don't do salads, we just do chicken fingers, French fries, Texas toast, coleslaw, our cane sauce, and Coca-Cola products, and that's it.
Did you bring samples or no? I don't smell them, so I'm thinking no.
They wouldn't have handled very well from Dallas.
Not through TSA, huh? Like, I knew that was the answer.
But we are excited for you guys to try it very soon. So that's it. That's all that's on our menu. And because of that, we're able to be very refined and efficient in what we do. We're usually on lists of awards and accolades. I won't bore you with all those details. More so what I think you're probably interested in is our community involvement. And we have 5 core areas that we look to be plugged in. We have a dedicated community marketing manager for every restaurant. That person's sole job is to reach out to your community and be plugged in with primarily these initiatives, but as the slide indicates, we will help where needed. But that's, education, animal welfare, entrepreneurship. As we started as a small business, we understand how tough that is. So we try to give back in that regard and not forget where we came from. This is a conceptual idea of what you might see in your restaurant. Each restaurant has local community graphics inside, so it's actually a really cool job. I would like to do it if I didn't do this. But basically, the person who works in marketing, sole job is to, when we open a restaurant, they research the area and they like to look at, it's a really good analogy, a boulder, a rock, and a pebble. So they want to find things that they can incorporate into this restaurant, whether it's artifacts or local artwork or photographs, historic photographs, whatever it may be, that from a boulder standpoint, something that, somebody who lives in Clovis probably knows. From a rock standpoint, something maybe if you lived here 10 years, you might know. And then from a pebble standpoint, something that oh, that's really cool. I never knew that and I've lived here my entire life. So they try and decorate the restaurant with things that are unique to your community.
So we can't expect 3 disco balls then in
No, you'll have the disco ball. So the cool story behind that is that Todd was struggling to open his first restaurant. He had an SBA loan, and the only thing he could afford was a disco ball. He had this random skylight in the original restaurant, which still exists, and that's all he could decorate it with. So every restaurant since then has a disco ball. You'll have the quality materials there, like that's actual cypress paneling, real brick, and ceramic tile, reclaimed car hoods on the table. So those are actually recycled car hoods from vintage automobiles. So we have this kind of cool, funky industrial vibe on the inside, but we're not trying to do that on the outside and compromise, how your city looks and feels. But there will be nods to your community inside through the decorations and the artifacts, not in like a cheesy Applebee's kind of way, but no offense to them, but in a cool way, things you're actually interested in reading about or seeing when you go inside the restaurant. Just another view. And this is the existing building, Pier 1, which I believe closed about 3 weeks ago. So the building would be raised, and then we would redevelop the site to feature our drive-through, which has a dual drive-through lane, as Ricky mentioned. That functions uniquely. It's probably something you haven't seen in this area yet, but basically we've gone to, especially during COVID, ordering through tablets and taking payment through tablets. So we use 2 lanes because during peak hours of lunch and dinner, the menu boards and the pay and the pickup window become obsolete. They're used in off-peak hours, but we have crew members out there taking orders with card, and we're able to get that facilitated quicker. Customers still can use cash, but they're routed back to the window, or it's carried to the window and exchanged for them. So it really helps us with our speed of efficiency. We've added a second kitchen to help with any concerns there might be about the drive-through and speed of service. Historically, we have about a 2.5-minute average from the time that you place your order to the time you pick up. In LA, we were able to, during COVID, with dining rooms shut down, we were able to get that down to about 1:46 seconds by eliminating parking spaces, which weren't being used, and adding second drive-through lanes to those older restaurants. So with an actual engineered plan, we feel really confident that this will be a consistent time that you see going forward. And because you can only order one thing, there's really not anybody sitting there thinking, oh, do I want this or do I want that? They know what they want, especially the second or third time they come to visit us. And we've tried to match the colors, the aesthetics of the existing shopping center with the Spanish tile roof, the gray and the white stucco of the at-home building, which I believe was recently remodeled. And landscaping will be top quality. We don't go cheap on the landscaping. We want it to look good as well because we want people to eat with us. You don't want to eat somewhere that looks run down. So we understand that and we value that as well. So we're going to maintain the existing landscaping around the perimeter of the shopping center. It looks very nice. So it's going to be green and lush, and we're not proposing to change any of that, but we'll add to the parking lot and add additional trees, and it'll kind of have like a deserty look around the perimeter of the building. So to conclude, we're community focused. This is going to have a manager whose sole job is to give back to your community. Our facilities and our landscaping are top quality, high quality materials, and our food and service is consistently one of the highest in the industry. So we're really happy to be here. This will probably add about 100 employees overall, but there will be 6 to 8 managers with executive level salaries. And when I say that, I mean, you know, probably in California, that would be high 5 figures. So it's not going to be your typical run-of-the-mill fast food restaurant that comes in, flies by night, and then we're gone in 5 years. We want to be part of this community, and we're going to invest in it. And with that, if you have any questions, I'm here, but thank you. I appreciate your time.
Any questions? Seeing none? No? Vaughn, go ahead.
I had a question for you. You know, right here, we want you to be successful. So, you know, In and Out does the one item kind of deal, and I see. How long is your busiest store the average stacking of the cars behind? How far does it go? Will this be sufficient with 2 lanes? I see there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16 cars, if it's all full, up to where that driveway goes to Kuhan Luke's there.
Yeah, we expect this drive-through will stack about 21 to 23 by we pull people forward to the front of the building and squeeze more in than what's actually shown on the plot. That is higher than average. Historically, single-lane drive-throughs fit maybe 6 or 8 cars, and a lot of the older restaurants that you'll see that we have in LA were designed that way. Even in 2015, a lot has changed since then, and we've learned quite a bit this last year. So while we actually don't have a, you know, full transparency, we don't have a true double drive-through built yet. We've just got the ones that we've modified in the Los Angeles area. But they're doing extremely well with the modification, and like I said, we've been able to shave about 45 seconds off of that transaction time. But I mean, I'm sorry, if you can remind me what your first part of that question was?
No, I just worry that you'll be so successful that the line of cars will be going into the parking lot, and so I just want the staff to be aware of how your staff is going to direct them and how we are going to direct it when it gets too long, kind of like what we've had at In and Out.
Yeah,
so.
and we were mindful of that. I think that what you see a lot of is, especially during COVID, older assets of existing restaurants that weren't designed to be solely drive-through, and as a result, they're stressed. And so with this particular site plan, we've tried to force the drive-through entrance to be further away from Cole Avenue. That way, if worst case, it got more than 21 cars in the drive-through, it's going to have some interior access to the shopping center before it backs up onto the public streets. At that point, you'd probably be close to 40 cars in the queue, and we would have like professional traffic control business out there managing that for us. We wouldn't expect our employees to do that. We would have either a third party or maybe consult with the off-duty police officers if that's an option here.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
The question for staff, we're getting more and more of these, not more and more, but we're getting a lot of these drive-throughs to the Shaw, the specific one. can or how do we get rid of policies 11 and 12 so that way drive-throughs don't have to go through a GPA and they just go through a CUP? Because I would consider you stopping at Walmart, getting your food almost like a drive-through too. So that, you know, there's those little exceptions that we have, but I think it's becoming a norm. And so I think this is creating an added step for applicants where I think this is the day and age in which we need to get rid of this policy instead of someone always coming in, paying a GPA fee plus now a CUP. And so I think for Renee, to Dave, to you, Ricky, if I also get the support of from my peers, we need to get rid of those two policies, or how do we start to discuss to get rid of those two policies so that way there's no GPA, because one of my council members up here hates GPAs and I don't want to ruin his record of
And it only exists from Shaw, from Clovis to
Temperance.
Temperance, and that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and so I just, how do we start that process? Awesome.
So this item is actually going before the commission for the broader policy change this Thursday, and then it'll be coming to council next month, assuming it's recommended for approval from commission. But yeah, it's something that we looked at, particularly because I believe this came up when the human being was here back in March. And then if you recall, in July, staff requested and with you guys granted us permission to move forward and look at that policy change, but just the way the scheduling worked out and keeping Raising Cane's on time, they ended up coming before the broader policy discussion. So that will be coming next month.
Lynn?
Just two things. Thank you for making the trip.
Thank you.
During COVID-19 particularly. I was going to ask the same thing about sort of the Shaw specific plan is pretty old. That's coming from me, so 78 to 94. Don't laugh, that wasn't funny. No, I'm kidding. So I think it's definitely time, and I think the principles on which it was built, it made sense in, I'm sure in 94. It probably doesn't make as much sense. So I agree with, I'm not sure what the staff report will say. Is it drive-through everywhere or whatever? But I do think it feeds into the conversation, and maybe we'd invite Mr. Murphy to call in when we have this conversation, but how do we reimagine retail in the COVID-19 and beyond world? I think it's very different, and so we are really lucky in this case, if this moves forward, that we had an empty building. I'll just say the home decorations were better for me in Pier 1, but this sounds good for dinner, so this will work. But I mean, I think we're going to have more of these. So what is our community's response to reimagine retail and use of retail and how to reuse it, and what is that like? Because I think it's the reality, and it'll probably never be exactly what it was. But here's a company that sounds like you've taken sort of the worst of COVID, made it into a better business model for what you're trying to do. So all of that, but I just think it's all the same discussion that I think is really important that we have at some point about how do we do that so our retail centers don't end up being empty, because that's not the objective. So I just want to echo what Long said.
Thank you. Thanks, sir. And no other questions for staff. I will open this up for public comments. Does any member of the public present inside chambers wish to address the council on this item? Seeing none, do we have anybody online?
No.
Did we get any correspondence, Mr. Clerk?
No.
Okay, I will close public comments and come back to council for discussion or for action.
I'll make a motion that we approve GPA 2020-002 to amend the Chavez specific plan to permit drive-through uses for this specific site.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. I'd like to congratulate staff and the applicant also. The Pier 1 hasn't been dark for
Too long.
a month, and we've already got rid of it. So I'm glad that we
My wife's
have
still
another.
crying.
I know, it's really disappointing. Disappointing. But this is good. I know, I'm talking about my house. It's really important that I talk about the things. Shelley and I are sad that Pier 1 is gone. Stay with me, Bob. I'll also make a motion for CUP 2020-003, a request to amend the adopted use schedule for the planned commercial center to allow for drive-through use.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I do want to commend staff to hear applicants consistently, time after time, come and compliment the way that our staff keeps working well, not just the planning department, all departments. So thank you, Mr. Murphy, for sharing that with us and letting us know. Appreciate it. It's on the web, right, John?
It just went viral.
Thank you, sir. Item number 9, consider items associated with approximately 10 acres of land located at the northwest corner of Teague and Locan Avenues. Granville Properties applicant, Valley Coastal Development LLC and Tri-Valley Development Group LLC owners, Gary G. Giannetti, Civil Engineering and Land Surveying Representative. A is consider approval of resolution TM 6339, a request to approve a vesting tentative tract map to include 50 lots and an outlot, and superseding 2 previously approved tentative tract maps, TM 6134A and TM 6264. And B, consider approval of a resolution PDP 2020-001, a request to approve a planned development permit to amend the conditions of approval and development standards for the planned residential development associated with tract map 6264. Dave Merchant is our presenter. Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. As you noted, item number 9 is consideration of tract map 6339 and plan development permit 2020-01. The site in question is located at the northwest corner of Teague and Locan Avenues. It's about 10 acres total, and the site is bisected by the Trenton Avenue alignment, which you can see as the lighter colored strip running through the site. The tract map includes a total of 50 lots. It's a single-family residential project. Trenton Avenue is encompassed within a 60-foot wide street, and the remainder of the streets are 50-foot wide public streets. The total density here is just about 5 acres, or excuse me, just about 5 dwelling units per acre, still a little bit under that, which is consistent with the general plan designations for both the northern half, which is medium density residential, and the lower half, which is low density residential. The project is accessible from 2 main entries along the Locan Avenue street frontage. The landscaping design for the project includes a little bit of landscaping up at the northern end where the Moody Avenue entry is situated, along with Locan Avenue landscaping, which is consistent with the Hearn and Shepherd specific plan, which requires a park strip, including an enhanced landscaping area. The landscaping for the overall project also includes landscaping at the outlot, which is located within the northern half of the subdivision layout. A little more detail on the outlet design includes the diagram that's shown here. This is conceptual at this point, but we expect the ultimate configuration to look very similar to this, and it would include a pretty good sized shade structure, as well as picnic tables, barbecues, and benches. This open space amenity is a part of the plan development permit and the plan residential zoning that requires an amenity to be dedicated as part of the project. Plan development permit 2020-01 combines 2 previously approved projects, and that was referenced in the earlier description. The northern half of the subdivision, which is basically north of Trenton Avenue, was previously approved as a 36-lot gated residential neighborhood as tentative map 6264. And the southern half was approved as a public open street single-family neighborhood consisting of most recently 14 single-family lots. The current applicant, or the current application, would combine the 2 previous maps into a single integrated project. The subdivision would function as a non-gated, non-HOA, a detached single-family subdivision, and the plan development permit would provide and set specific setbacks for the neighborhood. The setbacks would be the same for the northern and southern half. It also establishes provisions for lot coverage, sidewalks on both sides of all streets, and 20 by 20 interior dimension garages. The Planning Commission considered the project at its September 24th meeting. During that discussion, the applicant clarified the proposed development standards for the project. A couple of those were tweaked based on the actual intent of the development going forward. The Commission spent a fair amount of time discussing 47 lot and 50 lot alternatives for the project, which had been presented for consideration. The neighboring property owner asked some questions about drainage, which were primarily responded to by the applicant's engineer. And after that discussion, the Commission voted unanimously in support of the subdivision with 50 lots, together with the associated plan development permit. Based on the project's consistency with the general plan and the Planning Commission's recommendation for approval, staff recommends approval of the tentative track map, subject to the conditions which are in Attachment 2, approval of the plan development permit, subject to the conditions in Attachment 3, and finally, that the council make a finding of consistency that the dedication toward public right-of-way is proportionate to the development being requested. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dave. Any questions for staff? Lynn?
This property also was not included in any of the arena overlay work at all. It was always intended for this, meant to be this, yes?
Correct.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I will, go ahead, Vaughn.
Dave, along Locan, the improvements on the sidewalk on the western side will sort of flow all the way down through this development, and it'll sort of look the same.
Let's go back. Ask the question one more time.
Because that trail goes between sort of the new development of Deauville East here. The trail's right above it. It kind of gets to Power, again, it's Power's Lane. That sidewalk's been improved pretty well, so it's good. I'm assuming the right
The trail
side.
alignment is a little bit north of this.
It is north of that.
Yeah.
So, but the sidewalk on the Locan side will continue down the same, it'll look the same as what Deauville East on top, north of it. Okay.
And just a clarification to the earlier question, the southern portion of the site, which was previously approved as TM 6134, was originally or is designated as part of the RHN overlay site. So I want to correct my earlier statement.
So, just so to follow up on that then. So in the overall math equation of meeting that requirement and making sure if we take land that was something, can we make up those units somewhere else, or how does that, we've talked about over the years maybe having some kind of calculation or just running total. I know you all keep it in your heads from your daytime perspective, but for those of us that don't carry that around, so what is the implication of that lower portion not being part of the overlay?
Right. The analysis for that transition, if you will, was handled previously. As mentioned, the site was already approved for a single-family residential subdivision. So in the numbers and the analysis that we've done regarding where we sit on our carryover density, we've already assumed that the site was not available.
So I'm not with you. It either was or was not available. I mean,
It is shown as part of the inventory, but as we've calculated how much capacity we have and where we sit overall with our ability to meet our requirements, we already knew that this site was not available for development.
Family. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks.
And if there's no other questions for staff, I will open this up to the public. Any member of the public in chambers wish to address council on this item? Seeing going once, going twice. Would you like to, or? Certainly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Darius Semi with Granville Homes. We do have a site further down on Temperance, south of Nice, if you want to park about 400 units of multifamily units. Thank you.
Thank you, Darius. Any other member of the public in chambers wish to address the council on this item? Seeing none, do we have anybody online?
Yes, we have one, Carol Hunt.
Mrs. Hunt?
Good evening. I just had, please, generally with improvements of this combined subdivision. As I've had more time to think about it, I came up with a couple of things that I just wanted some clarification to help me understand. And that involves elevation on this property, and also as it abuts to my property. I own the 5 acres on the lower section just to the west. And also the fencing that when Manny Penn owned this property, my fence was moved partially. Part of it was moved and part of it has yet to be moved. So I had a couple just concerns that I wanted to present about that. As far as the fencing goes, we're looking at my eastern border. The lower, all of mine has to do with the lower 5 acres that has the larger lots from Trenton to Teague, that area. If you look to the west or to the left, that's my property over there. Part of my existing fence line has already been moved to the west to compensate for a boundary change. There's still a remaining portion where it's hard to tell from the picture where my pasture is that is in its original position. At the time Manny Penn owned this property solely, we had a signed agreement that there was going to be a fence erected, a wooden subdivision fence. So my question is that still the plan? And when you mentioned there would be sidewalks on all the sides of the road, will there be a sidewalk also included along that section of, what's the name of the street? It says C on the map that I've got. I don't have a name in front of me of the street.
I see a Cook Road, which goes with the prolongation of Trenton. Is that is this what you're talking?
I'm talking about if you come off of Locan and head west, which is towards the left, head west towards my property. And then when you get to my front gate at the corner, if you were to turn left again, that section of the subdivision going to the southern boundary. Earlier this evening, they talked about it being, there being sidewalks along both sides of all the roads. There's a good map. So I'm just curious, will there be sidewalks on the side of the road next to my fence? Or is it only on the side where the houses are?
Mr. Usami, if you can come up and maybe you can answer some of those questions.
I believe it's just on this, because we don't own that property. That's Mrs. Hunt's property. We're improving the street. I can have Gary Giannetta, our engineer, maybe confirm that, but sidewalk on the boundary of all of our lots, basically.
Oh, okay. And
because that's not our, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mrs. Hunt.
As far as the fence issue.
Yeah, we'll work with you on the fence. I'm not privy to the agreement between you and Mr. Penn.
Okay.
But I'll be calling you tomorrow or Wednesday to take a look at what fence you do have, what it looks like, and we'll work something out.
Okay, that sounds great. My only other question was just based on the elevation changes of the property to the north of me, down where Ryan is. There are a lot of elevation differences on the 10-acre parcel. Is this parcel also going to be lowered like Ryan was to the north of me?
Mayor and members of the council, my name is Gary Jeanette. I'm the project engineer. And we haven't started the design for the subdivision. We were hoping after the hearing tonight with the approval, we'd start on it tomorrow. But I understand this was an issue that might have been mentioned to staff. And so we did take a look at it before I came down here today. And what happens is on Mrs. Hunt's property, there's about 300 feet of frontage. And the difference in grade between the south end and the north end is about 4 feet. So it's not possible to match the road up to her property. But I did do a rough layout, and I think I can keep the difference in grade less than 2 feet from one end to the other.
Oh, okay. And will it still be, as I drive into my front gate off of Locan down Trenton? So it would be I understand it's approximately, and I appreciate your taking an early look at this. Your guess that it would be like an approximate 2-foot rise up to my front gate?
Well, we would actually meet the elevation of your gate, so you'd have the same drive going in now that you have.
All right. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunt.
Thanks.
We have anybody else online?
No.
Okay. Linda, did you have something? No. Okay, I will, did we get any letters on this? We got correspondence from Mrs. Hunt.
Just for the record, we have her correspondence, Mrs. Hunt.
Great, thank you. I will close public comment and come back to the council for discussion or for action.
I'll make a motion for approval of track map 6339. Request to approve a vesting tentative track map to include 50 lots and an outlot, and superseding the 2 previously approved tentative maps.
I'll second it. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
And then I will also make a motion to approve, plan development permit, PDP 2020-001. Request to approve a plan development permit to amend the conditions of approval and development standards for the development associated with the track map.
I'll second that. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Item 10, consider actions related to annexation of territory, annexation number 2, tract 6284, southeast corner of Teague and Sunnyside to the City of Clovis Community Facilities District number 2020-1, Dry Creek Preserve Sewer Facilities and Services. The staff report for the resolution of intention had a non-substantive discrepancy in the description of the property, which did not affect the annexation process and has been corrected in the resolution of annexation report. A, consider approval of a resolution 20- a resolution annexing territory, annexation number 2, tract 6284, southeast corner of Teague and Sunnyside to the City of Clovis Community Facilities District number 2020-01, Dry Creek Preserve Sewer Facilities and Services, and calling a special landowner election to annex territory, annexation number 2, to the City of Clovis Community Facilities District number 2020-1, Dry Creek Preserve Sewer Facilities and Services. And B, consider approval of a resolution of the City of Clovis declaring the result of the special landowner election and directing recording of the notice of special tax lien for the City of Clovis Community Facilities District 2020-1 Dry Creek Preserve Sewer Facilities and Services. The staff is Gina, and I will make the order for the hearing and actions. This is the time and place for the public hearing in this council's proceedings for Community Facilities District 2020-1. The hearing is to annex the property identified as annexation number 2 into the district and levy a special tax in annexation number 2. Before I open the hearings, is there anyone who wishes to file a written protest? If so, they must be filed with the clerk now. Seeing none, the hearing is now open. We will first have presentation by staff about annexation number 2. After that, we will receive comments and questions and any oral presentations from any interested persons. When all comments have been received, the hearing will be closed.
On September 8th, 2020, the Council heard a request by the affected property owners to include territory at the southeast corner of Teague and Sunnyside, as indicated in the detailed map, and identified as CFD Annexation Number 2 to City CFD 2020-1. Tonight's actions will finalize the annexation process by holding a public hearing and property owner election. Before Council considers and adopts the resolution of annexation, there is a minor change in the staff report on page 3 in the conditions of the rate and method of appointment. Number 3, the special tax will be levied through fiscal year 2019-20, and it should read, it should read 2119, 2120.
Do we have any questions or comments or protests from anyone inside the council chambers? Seeing none, do we have anybody online?
None.
Mr. Clerk, did we get any written protests?
No.
I will close the hearing. We may now consider and adopt a resolution annexing territory annexation number 2 to the Community Facilities District 2020-1, which will annex territory described in the boundary map to the district and call a special property owner election, which will call for the property owner vote to approve the special tax and the appropriation limit for annexation number 2.
I'll move.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Will the clerk please announce the results of the property owner vote?
Mayor, I'm in receipt of one ballot representing 38 votes, all in favor, indicating unanimous passage.
Thank you. The record shows that the property owner votes are unanimous and in favor of the levy of the special taxes and the establishment of the appropriation limits. We may now proceed to the final actions for the district.
I'll move for the resolution of the City of Clovis declaring the results of a special landowner election and directing the recording of the notice of special tax lien for City of Clovis Community Facilities District number 2020-1.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 11, consider introduction of an ordinance OA 2020-003, a request to amend the Clovis Municipal Code to clarify and refine section 9.18.050 Regional Housing Needs RHN Overlay District and to establish a ministerial process to subdivide parcels that qualify for development pursuant to the RHN Overlay District, City of Clovis applicant. This item was continued from the October 12, 2020 meeting, and Dave Merchant is our presenter. Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a proposal by the city to amend its municipal code and specifically to refine the existing regional housing needs overlay. The purpose is to clarify the intent of the original ordinance without making substantive changes. In addition to the clarification in the existing ordinance, a ministerial process to go through the parcel map process for RHN overlay properties is also proposed. A little bit of background, starting with housing elements and what brought us here this evening. Housing elements are required for every city and county as a mandatory element of each general plan. Housing elements are updated every 8 years, and each update and its reporting period are referred to as a housing element cycle. Clovis adopted our 5th cycle housing element back in 2016, and we're just now creeping into the 6th cycle process as we speak. During each cycle, the city must show that it has sufficient land inventory to accommodate its regional housing needs allocation as determined by Fresno COG. Back when we were working on our 5th cycle analysis, our 5th cycle housing element, the analysis showed that some of the city's previous RHNA requirement or our 4th cycle RHNA requirement was still outstanding in the high-density category, and that's referred to as a carryover burden. That required the designation of additional land inventory to accommodate about 4,425 units at a minimum density of at least 20 units per acre. The city looked at a variety of strategies to meet that demand and eventually adopted a couple of programs, one of which was this overlay zone, which was established in November of 2018. And again, this was specifically a tool adopted to help the city meet its RHNA carryover burden. As adopted, the RHN overlay applies to residentially designated properties between 1 and 10 acres in size. Eligible properties must also be shown on a map or diagram and a list that's adopted by the City Council. The RHNA overlay or the RHN overlay allows development of multifamily housing at 35 to 43 units per acre as a permitted use, and any projects proposing to take advantage of the overlay must adhere to the development standards that are included in the overlay district. The refinements that are proposed this evening are intended to clarify the original RHN overlay ordinance relative to 4 points. The overlay applies to all residentially zoned parcels located in the city. All parcels that meet the qualifications are eligible to be developed according to the development standards included in the overlay. The map of parcels and the associated list are intended to identify qualifying parcels and should be updated annually. And the inventory of qualifying RHN overlay parcels is intended to be part of the city's RHNA inventory in order to comply with the city's RHNA obligation. So again, that's reconfirming the direct relationship between the overlay and the RHNA obligation. In addition to those specific refinements to the overlay, a ministerial parcel map process is proposed to apply to parcels that qualify for development pursuant to the overlay district. The refined or ministerial process would ensure that requirements referenced in the California Subdivision Map Act are continued to be met, but it would remove the need for public hearings as well as the opportunity for opposition appeals in conjunction with those parcel maps. This again is an additional tool to help the city comply with its RHNA obligation. In reviewing the proposal, staff did some analysis and came up with a handful of determinations. The proposed ordinance amendment makes refinements necessary to clarify the intent of the existing ordinance. There are no material changes to densities, development standards, or parcel eligibility included in the proposal, and in fact, there are no substantive changes included. The ordinance amendment is consistent with the existing general plan, and the project is exempt from CEQA under what's referred to as the common sense exemption, which seems a little bit like an oxymoron when we're talking about state law, but nevertheless, the common sense exemption says that CEQA only applies to projects that have the potential for causing a significant effect on the environment, and we've determined that that's not the case with the RHNA overlay amendment. Planning Commission considered the overlay adjustment at its September 24th meeting. The Commission discussion clarified process and timeline for reviewing and modifying the list of RHN sites. There was no public testimony either for or against the project, and the Commission voted unanimously in support of the proposed ordinance amendment. As such, staff recommends that the Council approve the introduction of the ordinance amendment as presented. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Bob. Yeah, David, thanks for the presentation. This is a difficult issue for, I think, a lot of people in the city of Clovis, and certainly for the council. You know, it's worth, I think, reiterating that fourth cycle, the city of Clovis certainly took on a lot more than I think was than we should have, and we're continuing to pay for that as a result of threats of lawsuits and actual lawsuits coming to the city of Clovis. However, you know, we've owned up to our responsibilities, and we're willing to accept them and do what we can in order to meet the requirements that the state of California and the city of Clovis have arranged between our two jurisdictions. When it comes to this particular issue, there was a project that was approved. I believe it was on Willow, somewhere around Gettysburg, that was one that did not have a public hearing because it was, part of the RENA overlay process, and it was just really as a matter of right, they can go ahead and build there. And I believe that there was some comments from some of the council members that it seemed a little bit frustrating for the citizens who at least wanted an opportunity to voice their objection to be able to do that in a setting like a council or a planning commission setting. They weren't provided that opportunity because this is by right. The people could go ahead and develop on that piece of property. The ordinance that you're proposing, does that address any of the opportunity then that the citizens who would be impacted by this high-density project in the neighborhood would have to come in front of some public body, whether it's the planning commission or the city council, to object? Because I didn't see that here. In fact, I thought I saw the opposite. And so maybe you could address some of our concerns related to providing an outlet for public comment on some of these high-density projects.
The process of developing under the RHN overlay is not changed as the result of the proposed refinements this evening. The ability to implement or take advantage of the overlay where it applies is integral to the function of the overlay, and the ability for a property owner to come in and simply go straight to the building permit process is what this overlay is specifically intended to do. And those characteristics were essential to demonstrating to the state that the program is real and that we were able to make good on our carryover burden. So no, there's no adjustment this evening that would change the public interface at this point or create an opportunity for public comment or testimony relative to the compatibility. That opportunity would occur effectively when proposed sites or sites are proposed to be added to the map and list of sites, which would occur roughly in March of each year. But once a site is on that map and the overlay applies, there isn't a defined city-initiated public participation process.
Okay, thank you, David.
Vaughn.
Thank you for the update. I have 3 questions. One is with regards to the CEQA exemption. Does that also mean it is Sigma exempt as well? Right, because we have the Sustainable Groundwater Act, right, Sigma? So is it also exempt from those requirements if a development came through?
I don't believe Sigma at this point has individual requirements applied. I don't believe there are project requirements or project-specific requirements coming out of Sigma yet to individual projects. But in any case, the project has to obtain water service from the city, and anything that's part of our standard process would apply. But I don't think Sigma triggers any specific and unique requirements at this point.
I just thought that with Sigma, developments have to account for how they're going to get water. And so with multifamily coming in so much, we're trying to allow that to come with the requirement. And so I'm just trying to see if those are, are they more loose on those requirements with this type of development? Am I not understanding it correctly?
So the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act applies to the city's overall water delivery and supply measures, not to an individual project. So we look at our water portfolio, the resources we have available, surface water, groundwater, and make sure that we are supplying the demand for our community, however it develops, without exceeding our sustainable groundwater withdrawals. So it doesn't really boil down to the individual project. It's kind of up to us as a city to make sure that we can provide the adequate water, which we can.
So just to follow up, then we have adequate water for all the units that are included in the RENA overlay? Is
Correct.
that- Yes, okay. And then is it also exempt from sort of VMT analysis and the application of those fees, these developments?
Projects developing under the RHN overlay are exempt from CEQA, and so there is no requirement for a VMT analysis.
Okay, so no VMT and no CEQA, okay. And then with regards to the policy itself, is the standard per the parking in number 6, is that reasonable? Is that developable with what we have here? 35 units in 1 acre, we require 2 stalls per 1 bedroom. Is that something in which makes it reasonable for someone to develop, or how it's written?
As I noted, there aren't any changes that are recommended to the development standards through this set of amendments. And so we really haven't evaluated whether or not the development standards could or should be changed. I think anecdotally, we have heard from some folks that have looked at it that it's difficult to meet the parking standards for market rate development. But that's anecdotal from a few folks and not really a specific evaluation of whether it can or should be done.
Do you anticipate looking at that in the future? Because it's going to be coming back to us yearly per the policy? Or will it come, it says, reviewed yearly, so does that mean it comes back to us yearly?
The map of sites will come back annually, but at this point, there would be a defined need to consider the development standards. At this point, there's no plan to look at that or to make any amendments to the development standards.
Okay, thank you.
Jose?
One thing about parking needs and what it signifies as far as how much property that requires and how much it's going to cost as far as building a project, it can't be anecdotal because an engineer can calculate that. We know what our standards are. It's 2 stalls per unit for 1 to 2 bedroom units. So it's a given. We're going to require for a unit. So all these numbers are already, they're a given. It's a formula. It's not anecdotal. It's a formula. You just punch in the numbers and you get to know how big that project has to be or the land mass has to be. It either fits or it doesn't, or either pencils or it doesn't. So developers, they know, and they know what they take to the bank and see if they can get a loan for it. And so parking can be an issue because it could be, in their eyes, wasteful land. Because they'd rather make, because that's what I don't like about this thing, because the government wants, Sacramento wants us to build more units, but if we use our parking standards, we can't build more units because we dedicate that land to parking versus a bedroom. And therefore, something's got to give. So we do have to do some analysis because I don't think it's anecdotal. I think it either is or it's not. And I think people that have engineering degrees can calculate if it's true or not. Because yes, a developer can come to you and say, well, this is what it is. Well, we don't have to trust them. I think the math tells us what it is. And we should do the math because I think engineering is a science. And you know what they say now? We got to trust the science. And so, and is our building, our standards compatible with what the government wants us to do? And then that becomes now a political issue for us. Do we want to have apartments that only gives 1 stall per a 2-bedroom unit? And now that's, do we convince everybody else that that's what we need to do if we're gonna get this type of development here? Because we're gonna do what Fresno did. We're gonna have to build a subsidized development, $500,000 per unit for a tiny thing that meet our requirements. And unless we do that, these things will never get built in Clovis. And so there's so many moving parts to bring these type of buildings to fruition. Either somebody gets the grants, or they will never be built. So, and we get, we got to tell our constituency and everybody else, we are not in the development business, but we might be hurting the ability for these units to be built if our requirements are out of this world. Anyway.
Lynn?
I had a comment similar to Bob's on the citizen engagement in this process. It seems like a train wreck that we can imagine. The example that Bob brought up is a good example of that. That was a financing authority question, but so this doesn't address that, but should it or could it? Because there is no way that once a year we do this map and we put it somewhere that that most citizens of Clovis would go, okay, I can look at it in March, and then I'm going to know that this piece of property next to my house is going to be subject to this, and now staff can divide it up however they, whatever makes sense, and I'm never going to have a peep about it. So I think that is a challenge I don't know about that. So have you all thought about, is there ways to engage people? Is there ways to let them know? How are we going to do that? Because that will cause people streaming in here saying, how did this happen? No one told us. And you're right. We told you once in March, and we never told you again. And now you can have 200 apartments on a small parcel. So I don't know what the answer is, but I wanted just to sort of pick up where Bob said, no, there's nothing in here. But my question is, should there be? Or how do we plan to educate the folks that this is now possible on a parcel near them?
I think the first answer that comes to mind, I'm not sure it's the best answer, so I'm trying to think through it before it comes out of my mouth.
I never do that, so go ahead, just say it and we'll read it.
I think it's difficult to achieve the necessary objective of the RHN overlay while also providing the city's goals relative to public outreach. And just because the intent is to create the multifamily use as a permitted use, just as though somebody was building a single-family house on a single-family lot, or putting in a commercial business on a commercial lot. That's what the RHN overlay is intended to do, and it would be difficult to find a way to provide meaningful public outreach while sustaining the need to have this overlay that permits multifamily without going through public hearings and without providing an opportunity for public comment to kill projects. So, I think probably the better answer is that that doesn't mean that we have to stop looking for ways to reach out to the community and to provide notice and let neighborhoods know what's coming. But in terms of finding a structural way to do that as part of our permitting process, I think it would be very difficult to have both things together.
I just encourage you to just keep thinking about what it is. Is it an interactive map on the webpage where where it's more front and center, not buried quite so deep into the webpage? You have to click here, click here. I mean, I don't know what it is. Is it a sign on a piece of property? I have no idea. 20 years ago in Phoenix, properties that were subject to development had a sign. This is zoned at this. It could be these three things. And it was throughout their city. I thought it was kind of interesting at the time. I mean, I don't know what the answer is, but it seems like we are setting up for a gigantic conflict if the parcel next to my house, I don't even know what arena overlay is, and a carryover burden. None of that makes any sense to me. But it's destined to be in a 40-unit apartment complex. So I just feel like there needs to be some way to communicate that, and I don't know how, but we should keep thinking about it.
It's another mandate from
understand.
Sacramento. They speak out of both sides of their mouth. They want transparency, and that's what you're concerned about.
Right.
But they also take away our discretion, because there's nothing we can do. The minute someone has a project and they can do it, we have to approve it. Is that not the case? We've lost discretion on some of these parcels, right?
Relative to the RHN overlay, if somebody wants to take advantage of it, they can take advantage of it.
It's a done deal. So we can be as transparent as we want to be, and we can march 100 neighbors, but we're going to have to say, thank you for your input, but it's happening anyway. Thank you to Sacramento. And that's what we're going to, and I'm willing to do that, and just so we can explain to our constituency, this is what happened up in Sacramento, and we're going to have to live with it, because our discretion has been taken away from us, and this is what the politicians up north want.
Here's the phone number to your assembly member or state senator, and you should give them a call.
So it's not our fault that we have to go by this law.
No, I know that.
But we can be transparent, but the consequence of our transparency is that we're going, when they come to this meeting that we invite them to, we'll tell them, thank you for your participation, but it's going to happen anyway.
But one solution I think we have is to plan. What the state did was we back planned. But if we plan, expand the sphere, which you voted against, but if we plan ahead, we can put all these into properties that everyone knows is going to come. So that way there is no surprise. But what we had to do was, we already planned it, the state mandated it, so now we go, there's no place to put it. So we put it on places that people were expecting low residential, commercial. So the way for us to do it is expand to the northeast, expand north of Copper, and say, here are all those units. We're taking off all the overlays, and RENA number 6 is coming, or 5. Here it is. Here's all those neighborhoods. That's how I see that. If we do that, there's no more surprises. There's no surprise. If I live here, I know 35 is coming next to me. Right now, there is that surprise where that dirt lot can be 35. I have no say. But if we planned ahead, and we expand the sphere, expand where we're going to plan, annex more land in, then we go, we're ready. It's all there. State, here's your plan, and it's all built. And that's what we are good at. We're good at planning for whatever the state mandates. So that way, when our residents have less to say, we have standards that are great. We have communities that will incorporate whatever the state mandates. That's the solution that I see in front of us, and we have to kind of move ahead instead of this next round going, oh no, we don't have enough land. Instead of 35, now we got to up it to 65 units per acre just to meet those numbers. And so that's the solution I see.
Well, hopefully when we have to reimagine malls and property like that, we can, use those to meet our RENA numbers. It's going to be less of an effect in the neighborhoods because there was already an existing use there. But taking people's public comment away, I mean, thank you so much, Sacramento. That's really bad. Any other questions for staff? I will open this up to public comment. Anyone in the council chambers wish to address the council on this item? Seeing none, do we have anybody online?
None.
Mr. Clerk, did we get any written?
We did not.
Okay, I will close public comments and come back to council for discussion, further discussion, or for action.
I always feel like I need to accept responsibility for making the motion on these, because I was the one who voted on that fourth cycle in front of COG. But before I do, I just want to make some comments, related to kind of Lynn and my shared thoughts, and I think some of the other council members. I did originally, when I saw this on the agenda, I thought, well, this might be an opportunity for us to figure out a way to engage the public. I realize, of course, that's not how it is designed, and that this is really just a modification, I think, to make sure that the process goes smoothly and there is some input from city staff on these projects as they come through. And I can accept that for this particular ordinance amendment. I do think, though, that I'm hoping that staff has heard from us that we're not afraid to hear from the public on this. We understand that they're going to be really frustrated to shut out public comment on some of these high-density projects that will be coming in next door is just really compounding the problem from my perspective. It's really, I don't want the state of California to make us step there as well, because I think we're going to be stepping into something, that's just as bad as what we've already been forced to step into. So do please take our comments to heart on how to reach out to the public. If they just end up coming in during the public comments portion of our council meeting, and there's 10 people that want to share their thoughts on it, they need to have that outlet. That's been my experience. If they don't have that outlet, then it manifests itself in some other way, which is going to be not good for our community, and probably not good for the idea of thoughtful planning presently or in the past, kind of going backwards and then also going forward. So having forced you all to listen to my words, at this point, I will move that we introduce the ordinance 2020-003 and amend the Clovis Municipal Code as discussed.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Dave. And I like how you guys have inserted the Planning Commission's actions in your presentations. I like explaining how it got here and what the Planning Commission did. Okay, council items. Consider a design of a City of Clovis challenge coin, and this was continued. I have the item here.
But I just want to say to Mike, this is going to take about 3 hours. Is that okay with you? Sorry.
There's several, basically we've almost, well, nothing is in, the die has not been cast.
Literally.
That's a double entendre, by the way. We had the back or the tail side with the eagle is not quite definite, but we're almost there. And then we have to choose from the discussion we had, choose between the one with the white background and the one with the whatever color background. Golden, yeah. Discussion?
If I may, yeah. So I'm just going to say that I appreciate option 2, and the big distinction I see between option 1 and option 2 from my perspective is that we have the gold star. And that was something that was really important to me, because that symbol is significant to our community as a result of those who have lost their lives in the battles against terrorism. And that's why we've incorporated that into our logo and our seal. So for those reasons, I would prefer option 2 and am open to any other comments.
Lynn, nothing?
I like the gold star.
Jose?
I concur.
Will the signs be ridged or will they be smooth?
I believe they're smooth. There may be an option for them to be ridged. I'm not positive. I don't recall seeing any.
They're usually smooth. It costs more to make them
Ridged.
Yeah.
Did you concur also, or?
Yeah, no, I like option 2. I like that gold star distinction. Yeah,
And I also like option 2. Lynn, you mentioned on the phone this afternoon that you had some, I probably regret asking this, but did you had you had a suggestion on the Eagle side of it.
Well, okay, so for my 3 hours, I've got a long presentation that looks just like this. When we were here last time, do we want the US, flag, et cetera, on the back, or do we want this to be about Clovis? And I'm not an artist, I don't know how to do this, so I just tried to find a few things that if you wanted this to be a coin about Clovis, that people could leave with, to use the phrase from that gentleman from the chicken place, the pebbles, things that people might not know about Clovis. So that's all, and so you'd have to have somebody design, and I'm sure they could do it for you. But what I thought about is incorporated February 26, 1912, named for Clovis Cole, Gateway to Sierras, and then safest city in the valley, home of the Clovis Rodeo, Old Town Clovis, Farmers Market, a schools, and a devotion to our veterans. The gold star in the city logo is in honor of their service. Not a single person on earth knows that's why that's gold. So I just thought that would be interesting. And then I just took a line out of the vision that says Clovis is a city that's committed to our entire community family, their needs, their values, and a quality way of life for all. Clovis pride, a way of life. I don't know. That's probably too much, but, well, the flag salute fits on it, so it's probably as long as the flag salute. So if we want it to be about Clovis, those are some starters. If we want it just to be like this or a flag salute, that's something entirely different. So that's all. This is your project, so it can be either one, but I just wanted to offer a few Clovis suggestions to make it about our city.
This doesn't have to be the last one.
No, I know for sure.
And I was thinking of putting 2020 on this somewhere, but it doesn't have to. But it doesn't have to be the last one. This could be like we do this one, and then 2-3 years down the road, another one can happen. But I like the "In God We Trust." I like the United States, and then because they can be collectibles, and what probably should stay the same is the city of Clovis, California, the Bronco Billy, and the back could be the one that changes. Yeah. From every 2 years, something like that.
Well, you could even have pictures of things around our community.
And
the water tower.
This could be the inaugural, and then the next one could be something else. And we have 2 years or 4 years to figure it out.
Yeah, and you had one with a flag salute too, though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, the flag salute was also too much.
It's a little wordy. I mean, granted.
Must be why I liked it. I do wordy ones. Don't laugh. That's not funny. God, I can't even read this.
Drew, is there a way to make the "we the people" more visible? It's just hard to read that.
I imagine that we could probably ask them. I bet this might be the second level of quality because they have different levels. Some coins cost more but I guess we could probably ask them to make it another color. Right.
It's probably cheaper if we already have that one.
It actually looks good. It looks good.
But in my pocket? In my purse?
Yeah, because it's 3D, you can see much better.
Fantastic.
With the shade.
You're welcome. Would you like some?
Okay, so we have a consensus? Option 2, tails, and then the next version will... Yeah.
Now or?
No, next time.
Okay. Okay, so
I just
we
did.
got to take action on this? No. I guess we're giving direction to staff. And how many? I forgot. I don't know if we want to go that.
That's when it starts to.
No, I want to say it was 1,000 is when the die fees are waived.
I'll have to double check. Do you remember?
Are we paying for this? How are we paying?
City will pay for it, then we will, if council members can purchase them, maybe what we need to do is just make it, round it up to, I think they come out to like $7.50 a piece or something like that, if I remember correctly. And then we can sell to the general public.
So if we are looking at having different iterations of this and a more Clovis-centric back, I would caution against ordering a huge number to start with because it could be 10 years. I don't know how fast we're going to go through these, but staff will take a look at the pricing. and come up with something, and then we'll work with you on how many we're gonna order to try to give us a good enough supply to last, but, not
Yeah, we don't want to have so many that we have a fire sale.
And I don't, and I don't think we want 2020 on it, because I think this is a year we all want.
This year didn't actually happen.
No, well, that is accurate. Okay, I think we're good there. Then we'll have a workshop for the Clovis City Council to conduct a workshop to discuss the impact on ongoing city operations during the COVID-19 state of emergency as declared by the federal government, State of California, County of Fresno, and City of Clovis, and to explore actions the city may take in response to the crisis. Luke.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We don't have any actions to take, but I did want to report to you on the numbers. This is the slide showing the number of new cases in Clovis by week. Again, the last week is not a complete reporting period, so that number is bound to move up. But it is following the same trend as the county and the state generally, and it has dropped significantly from our peak and is holding steady or heading slightly down. This is the same graph for the County of Fresno, day-over-day new cases. It's bouncing up and down depending on when the test results come in. Again, as I talked about last week, that one downward spike was a correction. That was implemented, I think, on October 6th. This graph shows the number of deaths in Clovis by week. Happy to report that last week there were no new deaths in Clovis, so that's always good news. This shows the Fresno County day-over-day deaths, and you know, again, it's bouncing up and down, but is still holding steady or trending slightly downward, which is good news. This is the hospitalizations. Again, the dotted and solid blue lines represent the hospitalized cases, the solid blue being the confirmed and the dotted blue being the confirmed plus suspected COVID cases. The red lines represent the ICU cases in the hospital. Again, we are down significantly from our peak that occurred in the middle of the summer. And well within the capacity of the local system at this point. But it's because of the measures that have been implemented, and it's something we have to continue to be cautious about. The state's blueprint tiers, the numbers again will be released tomorrow, so these are almost a week old, but we remained in the substantial tier for the county, which is the red tier. And new numbers will come out tomorrow based on the results that ended, of the week ending 10/10, October 10th. So for now, we stay with the same number of restaurants being open at 25%, gyms and such. You know, just looking at this graph, you know, this tells us how many total cases there are, new cases in Fresno, which plays into the determination of the tier assignment. It doesn't look like we're going to be dropping any lower anytime soon. It's kind of holding steady. You know, the thing where everybody's focused on now is making sure we stay in this substantial tier so that we don't go back to a full closure. So that's my report. I'm open for any comments.
Hey, Jose.
On the equity stuff, that's supposed to be, this is the first time they report, the county?
This is the first, well, last Tuesday was the first time they reported it, and that is the number of new cases in the lowest quartile, according to the health, HPI, Health Performance Index. Still some confusion as to, as far as I know, that number will not bump you up a tier, but it could prevent you from moving to a better tier. You know, it wouldn't, as you can see in the, over on the right-hand column there, the numbers for the health equity maker would put us in the widespread tier if that was taken alone. But I don't think that's how they're applying it. I think what they're looking at is that we could not move down to the next tier unless that number is consistent with those numbers as well. It's also requiring some additional county investment and work in the way of testing and stuff in those areas as well.
And where can the public get that health equity metric? Is it on the?
It's on the webpage. I believe that it's COVID-19-ca.gov.
So it's not in the county's dashboard then?
I have, I apologize, I haven't looked at, it may be on the county's dashboard. I've been taking my stuff off of the state's webpage, and you can get this chart. There's a county map, and then there's a link to their entire spreadsheet that they show where you were last week, where you are this week. Are you on the watch list? Are you doing okay? So.
Metric as well. It won't make you go down or up, but it won't make, you can't go up without it, but you can certainly go back down. So I'm trying.
Okay, thank you.
I did reach out to the mayors that are affected by the health metric, and I did offer them our assistance if there's some things that we can do to help them, and I got several emails in response, and they were very thankful that we were offering up some assistance. And I'll bring it up in the COG meeting a week from Thursday and see if there's anything we can do. I would imagine the most we can probably do is share some of our economic stuff so that they can maybe get themselves in a better position financially so that maybe they can afford to do some of the things that will help them with their metrics. Any other discussion on the workshop? Okay. Luke, any city manager comments?
Yeah, just a quick note, kind of a disappointment, but it's kind of in line with everything else that's happened this year. Our staff and the Old Town Kiwanis really did everything they could to see what we could do about the Christmas parade. Obviously, holding the traditional Christmas parade would be a huge social gathering, and we couldn't do that. We looked at everything from holding it in unusual places, more remote places, having stationary floats spread out at multiple places around town, or even having stationary floats down Clovis Avenue and having a drive-by parade. But all of the options we looked at either brought huge traffic snarls and gridlock, or the potential for people to walk down the sidewalk anyway and all be shoulder to shoulder and packed in just like they would, or both. So today, the Clovis Kiwanis had posted on their website, the Old Town Kiwanis had posted on their website that there will be no Christmas parade this year. So it's a disappointment, but I mean, as disappointing as it is for what we've been through this year with the canceling of Big Hat Days, the rodeo, 4th of July, Clovis Fest, football season, well, yeah, so it's unfortunate, but they did make that notification today.
This is almost like the saying, the beatings will continue until morale improves. Thank you, Luke.
Luke, just a thought on the way to do it is if floats stayed and people drove, because I've seen some of that stuff where you just stayed still, all the floats just stay along Clovis Avenue, and then people just drive through and we honk and we, celebrate. I know it might be a longer traffic issue, but that was something where I've been a part of where, how we do birthday, little thing, you come and say hello to your mom and stuff. And if we did that, was that ever discussed?
Yeah, we looked at that. We looked at several options for doing that. The problem we were looking at is best estimates are we would get, 4,000 vehicles wanting to come through, and being only able to move a few hundred an hour through at that pace. It would be a snarl that would back up and gridlock major intersections. And then what would end up happening is someone's going to say, I'm not going to wait here for 4 hours to drive through. I'm going to get out and walk down the sidewalk with all the other 10,000 people shoulder to shoulder. So We looked at that option very heavily. We even thought about, well, maybe if we have the parade drive by a secret area and we film it and put it on, but then what we know is going to happen is everybody that's in the parade is going to go, hey, don't tell anybody, but we're going to be doing the parade here at such and such a time. And we looked at a lot of options, and hats off to the Old Town Kiwanis, because they really wanted this to happen, but they wanted to do it in a safe and sane way, and they looked at a number of different options, and there's just none of them that really worked out.
So on a related note, the neighborhoods that do their Christmas celebrations, are we in contact with them? Are they canceling them too?
We have had some limited
Peach and
we have had some limited contact with them. They are trying to decide what they're going to do. Again, those are a little different in that they are not a city event. We don't do traffic control. We don't do street closure for it. That is a
organic.
A happening. Yes, that's not and one of
I know the one in the southeast they canceled.
They canceled. The Cindy Lane. We've been in contact with them, recommended that, they kind of figure out what they want to do, or are they going to do it. My guess is it's going to be pretty evenly split. Some are going to go, yes, we're going to do it, and some are going to say no. And that brings with it its own, traffic challenges as it is. But that's not a street closure that we're officially sanctioning.
Okay, council comments. Bob?
I've gotten a little bit of a complaint related to the amount of garbage that's on 168. And so I know we've got the Caltrans representative there at COG. I've never have gotten a real, she's very pleasant, very nice, but she never seems to do anything that is relevant to the requests that we make. So if you wouldn't mind mentioning it, I would appreciate it. And then maybe if we could also figure out a way to connect with Caltrans or somehow get some of the garbage picked up, because it's, I don't mean to be picking on Fresno, but it's nothing like Fresno right now. We don't have a lot of homeless encampments that I've seen up on the ridges of Highway 168. Maybe there's a few that have just escaped my attention. But we probably need to figure out a way to get that garbage picked up on 168.
So this was actually a subject at COG a couple of years ago, and the solution was to allow us to pay Caltrans with our Measure C money to do the maintenance that they're not doing.
That was very generous of them.
And when that, to be honest, when that proposal came before the Policy Advisory Committee, I was kind of scratching my head going, well, wait a minute, why would we spend our money to pay you to do the job you're supposed to be doing? But, that was brought forward by the Highway 99 cities, because they were saying, have you seen our freeways? It's killing us, and we're willing to, so the freeway cities along 99 were willing to give up Measure C money to try to get a little bit higher level of maintenance. If that's something that council wants to explore, we could look at it, but that
No, I just want Caltrans to do their job. The other thing is that they've got the Adopt a Highway program. Is that defunct? Or we just don't have anybody that's interested in participating?
I don't know that I have anybody, but we'll follow up with Caltrans and try to report back to council as to what we find out on that.
Okay, yeah, and we may need to put some feelers out there in order to figure out if there are some organizations that want to adopt a portion of the highway, because that generally has worked well.
All right, just the Measure C was an FCTA discussion, and Caltrans did put some money into the pot. It was sort of turned out to be a matching deal. And the city of Fresno was quite excited about that, and they put in but only the city of Fresno and Fowler were the only two.
It didn't work for the city of Fresno, because it's a mess.
I'm just saying,
Okay,
that's,
all right.
we don't want to be like that. But anyway, but I thought it was such a bad, why would I give you my money to have you do the job that, it just made no sense.
Yeah.
But it's still.
The 168 and Bullard has been adopted by the agnostics and skeptics.
Are they doing a good job of picking up the?
I'm skeptical. I'm sorry. I looked at that and I just kind of smiled.
That's what the sign says?
That's what it says.
Yeah, I saw that actually.
Agnostics and skeptics.
They don't know if there's a trash problem, and if there is one, they're skeptical as to whether it exists.
And they surely won't pray to have it go away.
I'm thankful for their service. As long as they do a good job picking up the trash, I'm happy that they're willing to participate. Okay, so this is your photo. So you may recognize this as Two Cities, which is a coffee shop on 4th Street, and this was taken Saturday morning. And they opened up their patio, in fact, in the back, but they still get so many people that are interested in consuming their product. It's a well-crafted coffee. But I put this up there to show you that there are some people there wearing some masks. When they're seated, they're not. It's certainly a crowded area. People are supposed to be 6 feet away from each other if they're not a part of a group, because there were families there, and I think groups of friends there as well. But the community is itching for this type of interaction, and we're seeing it. And I think that we probably need to continue to encourage people to, act appropriately when they are engaged in activities like this. If they can't stay, for example, if they can't stay 6 feet apart, then wear the mask, and engage in the washing of the hands, the things that we've already been saying, because I think that people are really, and I think this photo represents it, people are getting tired of staying in their home. But if they venture out, we need to make sure that they venture out responsibly. Encourage it, but just make sure that they venture out responsibly. So to the degree we can do that, that would be great. I don't know if you guys have, I was going to throw up a photo of Farmers Market on Friday night, but there are a lot of people out there. And maybe I'll talk about it in my next council comments as to some things that I see going on there that may end up being long-term strategies to benefit the city of Clovis. So I'll leave you with that teaser for our next council meeting in November. Thanks, Mayor.
Next show, next bat channel, or what is it? To be catch, right? Lynn.
I was trying to find, you mentioned homeless camps, and somebody sent me a post from Facebook, because I don't do Facebook, as you all know, talking about homeless in their neighborhood, although she doesn't tell me where her neighborhood is, so it's not super helpful. So I don't know if at some point maybe the chief can just give us that there might be, if there's any update in our city on, are we seeing more of those on 168, for example, to Bob's point. I haven't seen them, and I can't respond to the Facebook post not knowing where they're talking about, but I don't know if it's it's a topic on the mind of the chief and the staff.
Yeah, we can have the chief give an update at a council meeting in November. My understanding is that we are seeing an increase just with the catch and release situation, and even at the statewide level, you had a bunch of people released that have no visible means of support, and they're out there, and there wasn't really a place for them to land.
I'll mention too that we did get a report that they were really breaking up some of the homeless encampments that are out around the Poverello House and Fresno Rescue Mission. And when they do that, there is a diaspora that takes place. Did I pronounce that word correctly? Okay. I'm still trying to work on anathema. So when that diaspora takes place, some of them end up in the city of Clovis. Eventually, though, I think that they go back to, Poverello and Fresno Rescue Mission and those places. So I didn't mean to jump on your council comment, but I just wanted to throw that out there.
Fine. Chad, can you get us an update census soon? Because I think, is everything done? If you have it now, if not, then just on a Friday report is fine. Just want to see where we ended up.
Yeah, no problem. Mayor, council members. So the census wrapped up last week. If the court decision holds, we will have wrapped up at 78% of a response rate, which is fantastic. Mm-hmm. In 2010, it was 72.5. So our local representative, who's been trying to, with the census, who's been trying to help us get the word out, is extremely happy. She got very high marks, as you can imagine, and wanted to thank everyone for their participation, including videos that were made by council and our work with social media and outreach. So, yeah.
Well, excellent. Thank you, Chad.
You got it.
And thank you, John, for working with the census staff very early on. I remember those discussions early on with the staff and coming to the city for our assistance. Lou, can you look into CUSD to see if they are ready to start up those joint meetings again? I think it's a great time because school's starting up. We're not using our buses anymore with meaning free fares, and it's a good time to sort of get together, get ready for next year. How do we plan along as school starts and all that stuff?
So they actually did reach out. We did have some dialogue in the last couple of weeks. They were somewhat non-committal. They're kind of they're in a very difficult place right now trying to adapt to getting everybody back. So typically we would have that joint meeting in October. If there is interest of council, I would not recommend it right now just because they're still trying to get their legs, get their process set up for actually the kids coming back. But we could maybe look at something in the spring if you would like, and have the full joint meeting between council and elected board. We could do that sometime in the spring.
How about those subcommittee? Yeah, I'm talking about those subcommittee meetings because it's.
Okay, I'll talk to them about getting that go too.
Okay.
Jose? I have nothing. I forgot to bring it with me, but I was at the air board last Thursday, and they had the Clovis numbers for our air quality index, and it was a very telling graph because you could see just how bad our air was. I'll bring that. Make sure I bring it with me next time. It was it kind of went with what we were all experiencing. I mean, I think one weekend I didn't even leave the house because I couldn't go out in the yard and do yard work. So hopefully in the future things will improve and we'll get some forest management and some new trees in about 10 years, and who knows what'll happen. But that's all we have, and we'll be in adjournment. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I think that's what threw me into AFib was the air and the heat. That's what I'm.